See, there are problems in our elections, and it's important to remember. We saw many of them in the 2020 election. We saw suitcases pulled out from tables.
Ms. Weiser, we just went through the unprecedented agony of a president of the United States trying to overthrow a presidential election, trying to get the vice president of the United States to step outside of his constitutional role and to declare the president who lost the victor in the election. We heard people not far from here chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," driving him out of the body. There was an attempt to substitute the loser for winner in a presidential election. We experienced a violent insurrection. There have been hundreds of convictions. People have just been convicted of seditious conspiracy, which means conspiracy to overthrow the government. And now, instead of dealing with that reality, which poses a serious threat to the Union, a dagger pointed at the throat of the United States of America, do you see something as strange or perverse about this response to the actual threats to democracy in America?
That's right, folks, the same side that still can't say the words Joe Biden won the election in 2020 outright.
Mr. Chairman, let me begin. Mr. Cuccinelli, did Joe Biden win the 2020 presidential election?
Well, he's the president today, so yes.
Yes, he did win the election. Mr. Speed, that's your answer? He did win the election.
He's the president today, so yes, he won the election.
Well, question of whether or not it's the president and the question of whether or not he won the election are actually two different questions. In your opinion, did he win the election?
He is the president today, and he got them, and it's because he won that election. Yes.
Okay.
And he won that election because the Hunter Biden story was suppressed and because of Zuckerbugs.
Thought it would be a good idea to hold a hearing on election integrity. And expectedly, Democrats came locked and loaded with receipts. None more so than the man who carries receipts as long as CVS, Maryland Democrat Jamie Raskin.
There are states in which somebody returns a ballot and we don't even know for sure if that person filled them out, right?
There are plenty of those, yes.
How can that be a fair election? That sounds like something you do in North Korea or communist China. That's going right here in the United States.
People have just been convicted of seditious conspiracy, which means conspiracy to overthrow the government. And now, instead of dealing with that reality, which poses a serious threat to the Union, a dagger pointed at the throat of the United States of America, instead our colleagues come forward with legislation to try to impose a photo ID on local elections in the District of Columbia. Do you see something as strange or perverse about this response to the actual threats to democracy in America?
Thank you for your question. I do agree that the ACE Act does not address these critical threats that are urgent and that Congress needs to address as quickly as possible heading into federal elections, and instead focuses on actually rolling back voting rights solely in the District of Columbia.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back.
It's one thing to piss him off about issues in D.C., right? We've seen his response to that.
To uphold the Constitution, that's why people go to court and they swear an oath to tell the truth. Now, they take their shocking nihilism about what's true and what's false, and they convert it to this entire Congress. And it all starts, of course, with January 6th. And before that, the presidential election. All starts with a big lie, Donald Trump's big lie. Well, they say, well, who knows? Maybe he won, maybe he didn't. You say Joe Biden's president, we say Donald Trump's president. Nonsense.
But partner that with a discussion on election integrity in D.C., well, man, you poked the bear.
Page 4, Right to Rise USA violated 52 U.S.C. 30121A2 when its agent Neil Bush solicited a foreign national for a political contribution. Right to Rise USA violated 52 U.S.C. 30121A2 by accepting APIC's contributions. Respondents will cease and desist and will pay a civil penalty to the commission in the amount of $390,000. And this was signed for the respondents by you, Mr. Spies, on February 13th, 2019. Do you deny any of that?
I would be happy to explain if you'd like to give me more time.
Sure, and we can also explain it by entering into this of the record how a Chinese-owned firm entered U.S. presidential politics August 3rd, 2016. Intercept, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, the gentleman may answer
Please.
the question.
What you just read is that somebody solicited, that the conciliation agreement agreed that Mr. Bush solicited a foreign national. And what that meant is that he spoke with the counsel of a foreign parent company about whether it was permissible for domestic money to be contributed. No foreign money was contributed to the super PAC.
No, it says you accepted APIC's contributions. If it was American money, why would you be entering into an agreement to embrace your own guilt in the matter?
I was the counsel for an organization that found it was better to conciliate than continue to litigate.
Okay, so you did plead guilty to it.
I didn't plead guilty, and
Well,
the
you
organization
admitted-
did not
the
plead
gentlelady's
guilty.
time is-
You are
Thank you.
misunderstanding how it works.
His sentiment was echoed by many Democrats, specifically from Boston Democrat Jerry Connolly.
Which the bigger problem is suppression of voting, barriers to voting. Why not make it easier so 100% of Americans participate in the presidential elections and not only 60%? But of course, that's not what they want. And they're doing all of this not because they're worried about process and integrity. They're worried about outcomes. And that's what this is all about. And so when you can't win elections, try to select who gets to vote. It's an old practice and a reprehensible one.
And Jasmine Crockett, who had my personal favorite takedown of the day.
Voting rights, and every time we seemingly have a hearing on voting rights, we're talking about the fact that people are cheating. So let's talk about who's cheating. I got a few articles. Are you familiar with the fact that there was recently a settlement with this little news company called Fox News?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That was for about $780-something million. Was it because they were lying about the elections?
Yes, it was for a.
Okay, there we go. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to keep going. There also was this article, because I don't want us to base anything on Georgia at all. Please, Jesus, not Georgia. Okay, because Georgia purged 87,000.
Will the gentlewoman yield?
I
I think Georgia matters.
I will not yield. I am reclaiming my time. All right, so there were 87,000 people that were purged that were legitimate voters. So, no, we don't want to copy off of Georgia. Also, another GOP voter admits he committed fraud. Another one in Pennsylvania, man who admits he voted for Trump with his dead mom's name because he listened to too much propaganda.
The gentlelady's time has expired.
Hey Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.